In the heart of a verdant valley, nestled among the undulating hills of rural America, lay the remnants of the Greystone Farm. Once a thriving family estate, it had now fallen into disrepair, its fields barren, its buildings crumbling. At the center of this desolation stood Peter, a young man who had recently inherited the farm from his estranged uncle, a man he barely remembered. Peter had left his life in the city behind, drawn by the allure of solitude and the mystery that shrouded his family's past. He arrived at Greystone with dreams of restoration, but what he found was a web of secrets and intrigue that would test the very limits of his sanity. The locals spoke of the farm in hushed tones, whispering tales of tragedy and misfortune that seemed to cling to the land like a curse. They told of Peter's ancestors, once proud and prosperous, now nothing more than ghosts of sorrow that roamed the dilapidated halls of the farmhouse. Undeterred, Peter began his work, pouring every ounce of his being into the farm. But as the days passed, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Shadows danced at the corners of his vision, and strange, inexplicable noises filled the night air, disrupting the once peaceful silence. Determined to uncover the truth, Peter delved into his family's history, discovering a tangled web of deceit and betrayal. His great-grandfather, Jacob Greystone, had been a tyrannical figure, ruling over the farm and his family with an iron fist. His cruelty had set off a chain of events that led to a feud with the neighboring farm, culminating in a violent clash that left both families shattered. As Peter dug deeper, he uncovered evidence of a dark secret buried deep within the farm's land, a secret that his ancestors had gone to great lengths to conceal, a hidden grave, marking the final resting place of a young woman from the neighboring family, who had vanished under mysterious circumstances decades ago. Haunted by these revelations, Peter's nights became plagued with nightmares, visions of the past that seemed all too real. He saw himself in the fields, blood on his hands, as the specter of the young woman watched from the shadows, her eyes filled with sorrow and accusation. Driven to the brink of madness, Peter realized that the farm was not merely a place of neglect and decay, but a living, breathing entity, feeding off the pain and suffering that had soaked into its soil. He understood then that he was not its master but its prisoner, bound to the land by the sins of his forebears. As the line between past and present blurred, Peter found himself caught in a storm of vengeance from beyond the grave. The spirits of the farm, long silenced, now demanded justice, and Peter knew that he could not escape their wrath. In his desperation, he turned to the locals, seeking their aid in breaking the curse that held Greystone in its grip. But he found no allies among them, only fear and suspicion. They had long known the truth of Greystone Farm, and they had kept their distance, wary of becoming entangled in its dark legacy. Peter stood alone, facing the daunting task of confronting the horrors of his family's past. He knew that to free himself and the farm from the chains of its history, he would need to make a sacrifice. But what price would be enough to appease the restless spirits and bring peace to the land? As the sun set on Greystone Farm, casting long shadows across the desolate fields, Peter prepared to face the darkness, uncertain of what the night would bring. He was determined to restore the farm to its former glory, but at what cost? Only time would tell if he could break the cycle of tragedy that had doomed his family for generations, or if he would become its latest victim. As the moon rose high over Greystone Farm, casting an eerie glow over the dilapidated buildings and barren fields, Peter felt the weight of his ancestors' sins bearing down on him. The air was thick with anticipation, as if the farm itself was holding its breath, waiting for the final act of a tragedy long in the making. With each step Peter took, the whispers of the past grew louder, guiding him to the heart of the farm, where the earth bore the scar of the hidden grave. There, beneath the boughs of an ancient oak tree, he began to dig, driven by a force he could not explain. His hands moved with desperate urgency, tearing through the soil until his fingers brushed against something cold and hard, the worn edge of a wooden coffin. The moment he unearthed the coffin, A chilling silence fell over the farm. Peter stood frozen, staring at the grave, knowing that the secrets it held could free him or condemn him to a fate worse than death. With a trembling hand, he pried open the lid, revealing the remains of the young woman who had haunted his dreams. Her presence was palpable, a sorrowful spirit that lingered in the air, watching, waiting. Peter felt her eyes upon him, felt the weight of her unspoken accusation, and knew what he must do. He spoke to her then, not with words, but with his heart, offering an apology for the sins of his family, for the pain and suffering they had caused. As he spoke, the wind began to stir, carrying his words to the corners of the farm, to the ears of the spirits that dwelled there. A sense of calm descended upon the land, the restless souls finding solace in Peter's earnest plea for forgiveness. Knowing that words alone were not enough, Peter vowed to dedicate his life to the farm, to nurture the land and restore it to its former beauty. He promised to honor the memory of those who had suffered, to ensure that their stories would not be forgotten. In the weeks and months that followed, Greystone Farm underwent a transformation. Under Peter's care, the fields once again teemed with life, the crops flourishing as if the land itself was rejoicing. The farm became a place of healing, a sanctuary for those who sought refuge from their own troubled pasts. But the greatest change occurred within Peter himself. He had come to the farm seeking solitude, driven by a desire to escape the complexities of the world. Instead, he found purpose and a sense of belonging, rooted not in isolation, but in the connections he forged with the land and its history. As the seasons changed, Peter's efforts began to heal the rift between the Greystone and the neighboring families. Old wounds were mended, and animosities were replaced by a shared respect for the land and its caretakers. The farm became a symbol of hope, a testament to the power of forgiveness and the resilience of the human spirit. In time, the tale of Greystone Farm and its haunted past faded into legend, a story told around the hearth to remind those who listened of the importance of compassion and redemption. And at the center of that legend stood Peter, no longer a prisoner of his family's legacy, but the architect of a new chapter, one filled with hope and the promise of a brighter future. As the years passed, Peter often found himself beneath the ancient oak tree where the journey had begun. There he would speak to the spirits of the farm, sharing the triumphs and challenges of each day. And in the whisper of the leaves, in the sigh of the wind, he could hear their voices, offering guidance, offering peace. Greystone Farm was no longer a place of sorrow and decay, but a beacon of light, shining through the darkness of its history. And Peter, once a stranger to the land, had become its guardian, a keeper of secrets, a bridge between the past and the future. Erwin, a middle-aged man with a rugged exterior, who had recently inherited the property from an uncle he barely remembered, seeking solitude and an escape from his tumultuous past. Erwin saw this as an opportunity to start afresh, unaware of the chilling secrets that lay buried within the farm's history. As Erwin settled into his new home, he couldn't shake off the eerie feeling that something about the farm was unsettlingly off. The locals spoke in hushed tones about the property, exchanging glances that hinted at a story untold. Determined to uncover the truth, Erwin began exploring the farm, starting with the dilapidated barn that stood ominously at the edge of the property. Inside, he found remnants of the past, old farming tools, a rusted tractor, and stacks of rotting hay. However, it was a series of old, dusty journals tucked away in the corner that caught his eye. They belonged to his uncle and detailed daily activities on the farm. But as Erwin flipped through the pages, he noticed the entries becoming increasingly paranoid and disjointed. His uncle wrote of unseen watchers in the fields, strange footprints that appeared overnight, and a pervasive sense of being followed. Fueled by curiosity and a growing sense of unease, Erwin decided to investigate the fields mentioned in the journals. As the sun set, casting long shadows over the land, he couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching him from the rows of withered crops. That night, as he lay in bed, the sound of footsteps outside his window jolted him awake. Grabbing a flashlight, He rushed outside, only to find the fields empty and the night unnaturally silent. Days turned into weeks, and Erwin's investigations led him down a rabbit hole of mysteries and unanswered questions. He learned of a bitter feud between his uncle and a neighboring farm over a disputed piece of land, a feud that ended with the neighbor's mysterious disappearance. Local gossip suggested that the feud had unearthed something ancient and malevolent, buried long ago beneath the fields. Erwin's research into local history revealed tales of a cursed plot of land, where previous owners met untimely and often gruesome ends. The deeper Erwin delved, the more the farm seemed to reveal its dark past. Objects would move on their own, doors would slam shut, and the air was filled with the inexplicable scent of decaying flowers. Despite the growing terror, Erwin felt a compulsion to uncover the truth, driven by a need to understand the curse that plagued his family's land. One evening, as a storm raged outside, Erwin stumbled upon a hidden cellar beneath the barn. The air inside was thick with dust and a sense of foreboding. Among the shadows, he found an old locked chest. The key, surprisingly, was among the items he had inherited. With trembling hands, Erwin unlocked the chest, revealing its contents: old photographs, more journals, and a series of letters that would unravel the mystery of the farm. The letters were correspondence between his uncle and a figure known only as M, discussing a pact they had made. This pact, born out of desperation to save the farm from financial ruin, involved a series of actions that were morally and ethically reprehensible. As Erwin read on, he realized that the pact was not just a business arrangement, but something far more sinister, tied to the land's ancient curse. Haunted by what he had discovered, Erwin knew he could not leave the farm, not just because of the curse, but because of a growing obsession to find M and understand the full extent of the pact. The farm, with its secrets and shadows, had ensnared him, pulling him into its history of betrayal, revenge, and a curse that demanded a price too horrifying to comprehend. Erwin's obsession with unraveling the farm's mysteries grew with each passing day. The once clear boundary between his old life and his new existence on the farm blurred into obscurity. He felt entangled in a web of deceit that spanned generations, a participant in a story that had begun long before he arrived. Erwin was determined to confront M and end the curse that had plagued the land and its inhabitants. His investigation led him to a series of clandestine meetings with the remaining members of the community who were willing to speak. They shared tales of a shadowy figure who had influenced the valley's fortunes for decades, always present but never seen, manipulating events from behind the scenes. This figure, M, was rumored to be the descendant of the original settlers of the valley, cursed with an insatiable greed for control over the land and its secrets. As autumn gave way to the harshness of winter, the farm became a fortress of solitude for Erwin. The isolation deepened his resolve but frayed the edges of his sanity. Whispered voices filled the night air, and visions of figures lurking in the shadows became frequent visitors in the corners of his vision. Yet these supernatural occurrences only fueled his determination to break the cycle of despair that had befallen his family's legacy. The breakthrough came unexpectedly when Erwin discovered a hidden compartment in the floorboards of his uncle's study. Inside, he found a map of the farm with specific locations marked in red. These were the sites of ancient rituals, according to his uncle's journals, designed to appease the land and prevent the curse from claiming more lives. Erwin realized that the key to confronting M and ending the curse lay in understanding these rituals and their connection to the land. With the map as his guide, Erwin visited each site, uncovering relics and symbols carved into the earth that told the story of a pact gone awry. The rituals, intended to bring prosperity, had instead invoked a malevolent force that fed on the greed and desperation of those who sought to control the land. M had manipulated his uncle into renewing this pact, resulting in the unexplained tragedies and the sense of dread that hung over the valley. Armed with this knowledge, Erwin set out to confront M. The confrontation took place in the heart of the woods, where the ancient energy of the land was strongest. There, Erwin found M, not as the formidable figure he had imagined, but as a frail old man burdened by the weight of his ancestors' sins and the curse that had consumed his family. M confessed that the curse was real and that it demanded a sacrifice to maintain the balance between prosperity and destruction. He revealed that his attempts to control the curse had only strengthened it, leading to the misfortunes that befell the land and its people. M pleaded with Erwin to end the cycle, to find a way to appease the land without further sacrifices. Erwin, faced with the reality of the curse and the suffering it had caused, made a decision that would alter the fate of the valley forever. He performed the ancient rituals, not as they had been intended, but with a new purpose, to release the land from its bondage to greed and suffering. Erwin offered himself as a conduit for the land's pain, accepting the burden of the curse to spare future generations. The ritual was intense, drawing on the energy of the land and the spirits of those who had suffered from the curse. As dawn broke, a profound silence enveloped the farm. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a sense of peace that had long been absent from the valley. Erwin emerged from the ritual changed. He had confronted the darkness that lurked within the land and within himself, finding a strength he never knew he possessed. The farm, once a symbol of despair, began to thrive, free from the shadows of the past. Years passed, and Erwin became a guardian of the land, ensuring that the lessons of the past were not forgotten. The farm became a place of healing, drawing people who sought solace from their own troubled lives. Erwin shared the story of the curse, not as a tale of fear, but as a reminder of the power of redemption and the importance of living in harmony with the land. As for M, he disappeared into the shadows of history, his fate a whispered legend among the townsfolk. The valley flourished, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring bond between the land and its keepers.